Let's get this out of the way. Yes, the Bible contradicts itself. There, I said it. And not just the, oh, that's a tricky translation kind of contradiction. I'm talking about open conflict, scripture versus scripture, prophet against priest, gospel writer ignoring another gospel writer. One verse says God changes his mind. Another says he never does. One book tells you to kill your enemies. Another says love them. So either the Bible's broken or maybe contradiction isn't a flaw. Maybe it's the point. So today, let's ask the unsettling question. What if the contradictions in the Bible aren't errors, but invitations? I'm Theology Jack, your guide in exploring life's biggest questions and mysteries. When I was younger, I was told the Bible was clear, that it was one voice, one message, one divine perspective. Then I actually read it. Not the curated Sunday school version, not the cherry-picked proof text. I mean the whole sprawling, messy, conflicted library of text we call the Bible. And I found chaos, holy, sacred chaos. Like Ecclesiastes saying life is meaningless and Proverbs saying wisdom fixes everything. Like Leviticus banning shellfish and commanding death for Sabbath breakers, and Jesus feeding people on the Sabbath and making wine from water like a divine party trick. Like Paul saying we're saved by grace, not works, and James saying faith without works is dead. These aren't footnotes. These are collisions. The Bible contradicts itself because it was never supposed to be a rule book. It was supposed to be a conversation, and conversations include disagreements. That's what makes them alive. The Bible was written by poets and prophets and traumatized exiles and hopeful mystics and angry reformers and probably a few tired old men who just wanted people to stop dancing. They wrote across centuries, continents, cultures. They wrote in war zones and temples and prisons and deserts. And somehow, through all of it, they captured something bigger than any one voice. They captured the struggle, the divine echo, the raw, aching, holy attempt to make sense of a God who won't be pinned down. Yes, that includes contradictions, but maybe that's what makes it scripture. Not because it's always right, but because it's always wrestling. The Bible doesn't ask us to agree with every verse. It asks us to enter the story, to argue, to question, to see God in the tension, to notice that sometimes, just sometimes, God changes sides. Like how Exodus celebrates Pharaoh drowning in the sea. And then years later, Isaiah says God weeps over Egypt, calling them my people. Like how the conquest of Canaan is framed as a divine genocide, and then Jesus tells a story about a good Samaritan. Like how the Psalms are full of revenge fantasies, and then Jesus tells us to forgive 70 times 7. That's not theological sloppiness. That's growth. That's evolution. That's what it looks like when a community of people slowly realizes that the God they thought was tribal and angry is actually radically inclusive and relentlessly loving. And maybe the contradictions help us see that. Because if the Bible didn't contradict itself, we'd be stuck. We'd pick a verse, weaponize it, and call it divine will, which, let's be honest, a lot of people still do. But the contradictions disrupt that. They force us to think, to choose, to discern what love looks like now, not what law looked like then. Because the goal was never obedience to a static book. The goal was relationship with a dynamic God. And relationship requires listening, requires unlearning, requires contradiction. The Bible isn't a monologue, it's a divine argument, a family fight at the table of history. And God's not mad about that. God's in it, wrestling like Jacob in the dark, like Job in the ash, like Jesus quoting the Psalms of despair and turning them into resurrection. So if you've ever felt confused by the Bible, welcome. You're reading it right. If you've ever found two verses that cancel each other out and thought, what do I do with this? You're not failing. You're being invited to ask better questions, to follow the thread of love through the labyrinth of Scripture, to notice that the Bible itself evolves, and so can your understanding of God. That's not dangerous. That's holy. Because if God is love, and if love grows, then maybe revelation does too. Maybe the Bible's contradictions aren't a threat to faith. Maybe they're what make faith possible. What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm reading everything and might even include your ideas in a future video. And a quick reminder, click like just to be cool. And hey, if this is your kind of stuff, hit subscribe for more. It helps me so much. Let's map ideas that can change the world together. And thanks for watching till the end, fellow explorers. Stay curious and embrace the mystery. This is Theology Jack, signing off.